Hey friend, if you're listening to this episode around Valentine's Day, I hope you're doing okay today. For some people, I think Valentine's Day can feel joyful and sweet and romantic, but for caregivers, Valentine's Day can feel complicated. It can feel like you're spending so much time pouring love into someone else that there isn't always a lot left for yourself. Or maybe it feels lonely or heavy, or like the kind of love you're giving just isn't the kind that gets celebrated with flowers and cards. And so I wanted to make today's episode of the Care Collective podcast a little bit different. This isn't going to be about productivity or how to be a better caregiver. Today is just, I guess if I had to write a love letter to caregivers, this is what it would be. And if you're a caregiver, then I guess this is my love letter to you. Because there are some things I think caregivers deserve to hear more often, and honestly, you probably haven't heard it enough. So if you're in a place where you can, take a deep breath with me and just let someone speak to you for a few minutes instead of you holding everything together for everyone else. Caregiving is one of the most loving things a person can do, but it's also one of the most invisible. There isn't usually applause for it, there's not recognition, and sometimes there isn't even acknowledgement, sometimes not even from the very person you are taking care of. A lot of caregiving happens quietly, behind closed doors, in hospital rooms, and long nights, and emotional decisions no one really prepares you to make. And something I noticed when I worked in care myself, and something I still see every single day talking to caregivers, is how often caregivers minimize their own experience. You'll say things like, other people have it worse, or it's just what needs to be done, or maybe even they would do it for me, or maybe it's even they have done it for me. And all of those things can be true, but they don't erase how heavy caregiving can be. Caregivers are expected to be strong, patient, selfless, and endlessly giving without always being given permission to be human. And I think that's why words of affirmation can matter so deeply in this space, because sometimes caregivers just need someone to look at them and say, I see you. So if it's okay with you, I just wanted to say some things out loud today that I think caregivers almost never hear. So if no one has told you recently, you're allowed to be tired and still be a good caregiver. Being exhausted does not mean you are failing, it means you are carrying something heavy. If no one's told you this recently, the fact that you are worrying about whether you're doing enough already shows how much you care. People who don't care, they don't stay up late at night wondering if they're doing it right. If no one has told you this recently, you are allowed to grieve changes even if the person you love is still here. You can grieve who they used to be, you can grieve who you used to be, and you can grieve the life you thought you would have. Grief doesn't only exist after loss, sometimes grief lives right alongside love. And if no one has told you this recently, you are more than the role caregiving has placed you in. You are still a whole person with dreams, with interests, with a personality that deserves space to exist outside of responsibility. If no one's told you this recently, you are allowed to want help and still love the person you care for deeply. Wanting support does not mean you are abandoning someone, it means you are human. If no one has told you this recently, doing your best does not mean doing everything perfectly. Caregiving is messy, it's emotional, it's complicated, and there is no handbook that prepares you for every moment. You are navigating something incredibly hard, in real time. If no one has told you this recently, the emotional labor you carry counts. The worrying, the planning, the advocating, the watching, the anticipating needs before they're spoken. No matter how near or far you may be, that counts as caregiving. That is work even when no one else sees it. If no one has told you this recently, you are allowed to have joy alongside hardship. You're allowed to laugh, you're allowed to have good days, you're allowed to step outside of your caregiving role and experience happiness without guilt. Joy does not mean you don't care. It just means that you are still alive inside of all of this. So if no one's told you this recently, you deserve support that does not require you to earn it. I'm going to repeat that one again. You deserve support that does not require you to earn it, especially not through burnout. You do not have to collapse before you're allowed to ask for help. If no one has told you this recently, you are not selfish for having limits. Limits protect love, limits protect sustainability, limits allow caregivers to exist without completely losing yourself. So now I want to shift into something I would say if we were sitting across from each other. Maybe we went out to lunch, or maybe it's during one of those honest conversations where you finally exhale and admit how hard things have been. Because I know, it gets to a point where you try to shoulder through and you want to ignore it, but when that friend finally pulls you aside and really checks in and you finally get a chance to be honest. Caregiving changes people. It changes your identity, it changes your priorities, it changes your relationships, for better and for worse. Sometimes it even changes how you see yourself. And one of the biggest lies I think that caregivers often absorb is that loving someone means losing yourself completely. And I absolutely do not believe that whatsoever. I think love is supposed to include you in the story too. You are allowed to build a life that includes caregiving without caregiving consuming every part of who you are. And I want you to hear this part clearly. Burnout is not a personal failure. Burnout is often what happens when people are asked to carry community-sized responsibilities alone. Humans were never meant to care in isolation. We were meant to have villages. We were meant to have shared responsibility and support systems that catch us when things feel overwhelming. So if caregiving feels heavy, that is not because you are weak. That is because caregiving is heavy, and you deserve people who help hold it with you. You are still allowed to have dreams, you are still allowed to have goals, and you are still allowed to imagine a future that includes joy and rest and identity beyond caregiving. Love does not require losing yourself. If you're someone who likes reflection or journaling or just quiet thinking time, I want to leave you with a few questions today. You don't have to answer them right now, but maybe you can carry one of them with you into this week. What is one thing I wish someone would thank me for? Where am I giving love that no one sees? What kind of support do I secretly wish I had? What would caring for myself actually look like right now? Not the Pinterest version, but the realistic version. And finally, what version of myself am I trying to protect through caregiving? If this episode made you feel seen, I want you to know that you are not alone. The entire reason this podcast exists and this community exists is because caregivers like you deserve spaces where they don't have to pretend everything is okay all the time. If you know another caregiver who might need to hear this today, I would love it if you shared this episode with them. Sometimes caregivers support each other in ways the world forgets to. And if you ever want to share affirmations you wish caregivers heard more often, I always love hearing from you. So this Valentine's Day, whether someone buys you flowers or not, whether someone writes you a card or not, I hope you remember this. The love you give matters, the work you do matters, and the emotional strength you carry matters. And you deserve to be cared for too. You deserve support, you deserve rest, you deserve joy. And I'm really glad that you're here, and I'm really grateful that you spent this time with me today. Until next time.